So it's the 5th of July, the day after the July the 4th Independence extravaganza we had here in New York. My street right now is littered with stuff from the fireworks. The road is nasty as can be. Anyhow, I just put together this short video after seeing some remarks by the Vice President Jagdeo, seeing some remarks by Nigel Hughes, the new leader of the AFC. I also watched Politics 101 with Dr. David Hines. And before I even go on, just as a side, I wasn't surprised to see Prime Minister Rishi Sunak lost power in England in that elections. And that was not surprising. Remember, he was selected, but now he's been put out of power. But a point to remember, Richie, he has regained his seat. But just that after 14 years, the people probably want to change in Britain. Anyhow, back to our Ghana situation. I was saying that maybe Mr. Nigel Hughes is the better presidential contender against Mr. Norton, but maybe Mr. Norton is probably the right person to be the presidential contender for the coalition. I remember watching Mr. Norton in terms of being asked questions about his opponents, saying that the PPP will use ammunition against them in the upcoming 2025 elections. He was referring to a situation where allegations were pegged against one of the contenders in terms of sleeping hotel, trying to get a gaming casino license. I'm not going to call any names. And then recently, probably within the last 48 hours, he said once VP Jagdeo applies pressure to Nigel Hughes, he's going to step down and resign from his position. And when I saw that, I decided to make this short video. So by Jagdeo saying that Nigel runs the risk of conflict of interest in his present involvement in politics and being leader of the AFC with close ties to Exxon Mobil. There's some notes I made here. Nigel fires back that he will not resign as leader of the AFC because his law firm has close ties to Exxon Mobil. So I'm going to be playing a clip of David Hines interviewing Dr. Henry Jeffrey. In this video, you're going to see Jeffrey recalling Moses NAGAMOOTOO telling presidential contender RAMKARRAN that it was a conflict of interest for Ralph to be taking part as a presidential contender in the previous elections. It's not me you're going to be here saying it. You're going to be hearing Dr. Henry Jeffrey telling Dr. Hines about that scenario. Henry Jeffrey said that, and what I confirm, Henry Jeffrey actually stated what I was saying all along. The middle class, the AFC middle class wanted Nigel and not Shared Duncan to be the leader of the AFC. And maybe the AFC should have let Cameron Ramjatan remain in his position as a East Indian. As it is right now, the top 4 leaders of the AFC do not include one East Indian. Don't expect the East Indians to come out and vote 2011, 2015 when there's not a East Indian in the top 4. So, David Hines made a video by himself. He's saying, forget about the crossover votes. Let's focus only on the base. Well, I can tell you, you can have good luck with that.
So, let me talk a bit about Nigel Hughes now. Since he wanted it, and he said I spent 3/4 of my last press conference talking about him. So I was shocked that minutes after he was elected the leader of the AFC, that he gave an interview with the Morale Waves and obscenely said he's only going to disengage from the company, his company that is working for Exxon, should he become president. And he may not engage in discussions in his party that he is leader of when it comes to oil and gas policy. The leader of the party saying, I will not engage in discussions in my party on oil and gas matters because Exxon is my client. So he then said, should there be a conflict of interest between the national interest, and I must say that the Morale Waves pose some really great questions, because it's even more obscene, and I think you should read it. Every Guyanese should read it, how obscene it is. I can't convey that, the feeling of revulsion that I felt. This is someone aspiring to the highest office in the country, who've just been elected the leader of a party. He wants to be the presidential candidate, and says, if there is a conflict between Guyana now and ExxonMobil, I will take the side of ExxonMobil. I will defend my client. Now, I thought that when you're running for office, you want to change this country. You have to have some lofty ideals. It sometimes costs you in your pocket. I did not want to return to politics in Guyana. I had started a pretty lucrative career in the period after I left office. I returned to it and I lost for it. But people, sometimes you have to forego the private benefits, money basically, and to when national interest calls you. And in this case, he was asked directly, and he says, no, only if I become president, then I will do that. In the meantime, I will work for Exxon, and I will, if Guyana's interests conflicts with Exxon's interests, my client's interests will prevail. And I will not be part of a discussion at my party level about oil and gas policy. So who would lead the discussions? Like me saying in the PPP, I wouldn't be part of any discussion on a particular matter because I'm working for somebody. Obscene. And this was minutes after he got elected. But is this atypical behavior? It's not atypical behavior of Nigel Hughes, because you recall in 2013 when he resigned from the AFC, it was Oversight Global. APNU was saying, and all of the others, AFC, that we are corrupt. We're developing the hydro. But he was working for the company. He resigned there. And so in 2016, he resigned again. And I want to deal with that resignation in 2016 so that the people of this country will understand what took place in that period. So, you would recall that Nigel Hughes resigned on the 11th, I think, of April. And he gave a vague reason. Even the Starbuck News and the others said the reason was vague. They thought that he was aggrieved by apnea. And so now I'm understanding why that resignation took place. Because on the 15th of April, the government started to formally negotiate with ExxonMobil the 2016 PSA. So 3 days before the formal start of the negotiations, or the concluding stages, I shouldn't say formal, the concluding stages of the negotiation, Nigel Hughes resigned. But if you look at the Clyde and Company report, there was a report commissioned by the government of Guyana, Trotman, and that was presented on the 30th of January 2020. It's called Clive and Company, basically to justify that nothing was wrong with the 2016 agreement. But there are some very telling things that came out of a detailed reading of the report. It says that on the 19th of May 2015, EEPGL sent a proposed escrow process flowchart, setting out various sets and timelines for the execution of a new PSA. And that is what would become the 2016 agreement. So in the period from May 2015, when Nigel Hughes was still chairman of the party, the negotiations started because Exxon, their own report said that Exxon sent this document over proposing a timeline and the sets of issues to be negotiated that will eventually be the PSA. So Nigel Hughes lied about this when asked by Global Witness. This is Global Witness report, and I'm going to put up this report because Global Witness withdrew the report, but in the withdrawal they said they stand by a number of things, including that some government of Guyana officials must be investigated for what took place in the report. They said they had overestimated the flow to Guyana, but they stand by the other content. But it's good to see this report, and I hope that every Guyanese, all of those who are looking at this program and will look at the program, please go to the party's page. I'm going to upload this report, and you will see some interesting things here in the report. For example, in this report, it says the minister and its lawyer. This is an international organization. Trotman here, Minister Raphael Trotman, Nigel Hughes, lawyer. Exxon here, Guyanese government. Together led the PPP. A flow chart showing the connections. So this is what, I'm going to read a section to what Nigel Hughes said as quoted in this report. Hughes has denied that his relationship with Trotman and Exxon represent a conflict of interest. In July 2019, this was since then they were raising this conflict of interest situation, Global Witness. In July 2019, he told Global Witness that his time as AFC chairman did not really overlap with Trotman's time as Minister of Natural Resources. Hughes did not resign his post as AFC chairman near the start of the Stabroek negotiation. Did resign, his post as AFC chairman near the start of the Stabroek negotiations and was not in this post when Trotman was negotiating with Exxon in June 2016. But obviously, Global Witness did not know that the negotiations started based on their own internal document since 2015, when that document was sent over. But however, as reported in the Guyanese press, Trotman became a minister in May 2015, 11 months before Hughes relinquished his AFC position in April 2016. So he said to Global Witness, oh, I was not Exxon lawyer when Trotman was minister. But it wasn't true. 11 months after Trotman became a minister, that's when he resigned. So here is the chairman of the party, in fact, the general secretary of the party, negotiating with Exxon, and the chairman of the party is Exxon's lawyer. And in the PSA and the bridging deed, both have listed as their local offices his law firm. In both the PSA, the one that everybody says is lopsided, they both listed his law firm as their local offices for all three, for Sinuk, Exxon, and for Hess. So since then, this is there. So I noticed when I mentioned that he didn't read the Act on Politically Exposed Persons, he pointed out there is no law in Guyana to stop politically exposed persons from working for the oil and gas companies, etc., or anyone else. And I see his psychophone say, yes, it's true, there's no law. Well, then I'm politically exposed. I could set up a company, or Vikram Bharat, or some other minister, and start working for Exxon too. It's what's ethical, first of all, ethical, and secondly, in this case, you already have, in the past, a direct, and now that we're looking at this will cause us, let me make it clear. So Exxon has a lot to answer, because Nigel Hughes, knowing him, he will not want to resign. He is like that. He want to collect the money and still be leader of the AFC. And conflict of interest would not bother him at all. Because if a person could obscenely say, if Exxon interest conflicts with the national interest, I'll take Exxon's side. Anyone who could say that will not do this. But we're watching what Exxon and the others will do, and the first-tier contractors. And this may necessitate a formal, depending on how that matters, a formal investigation into all these matters. I'm making it clear today. I'm making it clear. We did not, there are lots of politically exposed people. He was politically exposed, as he correctly pointed out. His wife is a member of parliament. And therefore, but we did not, it was not an issue because we didn't want to. He would have said, oh, we're discriminating against Nigel Hughes. We're saying now, why couldn't he earn a living? That's their first thing, earn a living in Guyana. Well, all along he was doing this. What changed is now he has gone to the AFC. I think it's the best thing for us that he is the leader of the AFC, because Norton is right. And I'll deal with that in a moment, what Norton had to say about that. So now it would make interesting reading for people. Both the Clyde and Company report, which says that Exxon wrote the memo that went to the cabinet, their own report said that, by the way. And this is it. So this is unfolding in a very interesting way. But what is it saying all along? That we have a duplicitous person who likes to talk about national interest. He likes to talk about diversity, but it's not.
Where we're going. I look at it, I say, essentially, I don't know if these people don't sit down and think about, if I was the AFC, I would not have thought at this stage that I get Redrock Cambridge if I got nobody else to put up there. I mean, and because you're electoral politics. Because who votes you? Ghana people vote rate. Don't forget it. So who votes you are coming for now? When Corbyn make his error, well, not Corbyn make the error in 2006, because you have to make the error with all the confusion with who should be leader. But put that aside, Corbyn had to come back. Corbyn was walking away for the 2006 election. He didn't want to be there. The truth is, after the thing gets very late, he come back in. No. When you see all of that, and always operating. So the AFC came up. That is when the AFC was born. And so it got a whole lot of votes, and most of it, I think, around Linden and that kind of comment. But what black people vote? So now, what are you doing? It's the same story again. You have done nothing to liberate the Indians from the PPP. Where you going with it? And then furthermore, you are in the coalition that did everything the PPP going to throw at you, because you can throw at them too, but hey, mind, they got a community lockdown. They got a community lockdown more than you can ever have your community lockdown. So you got to get real. So I am not certain what it is you're up to. And let's even say, you throw Aubrey and you put Nigel. So what? Nothing for Aubrey. Or you get Nigel as thing and Aubrey as the prime minister. What are we doing? What do you think they're doing? But my job is not that. My job is to tell them to do what I do. I do the analysis. They can run how they want, and nobody can like me. But the point is, I really don't see it. And then there's a whole lot of other confusion or conflict of interest. And so you realize that I'm going to tell a story. We can't think, 10 years must be passed. Nobody can. When they can sue you or something. When Ralph RAMKARRAN was going up to be presidential candidate, Moses Nagamootoo was one of the chief men say he can't go up because there's a conflict of interest with him being in Cameron Shepherd. And Ralph said, but I can't give up Cameron Shepherd. All my children, I get no particular pay for Parliament. My children are at school. Who will pay for these people? And so Ralph withdrew. But the same Moses Nagamootoo now seem to be, well, to be truthful, give it to him. He congratulated Nigel on his leadership of the AFC. But I hope he ain't gonna move it over now, say you can stay your job and become president. I mean, because these things are too contradictory. It's like,
Henry, do you believe that the emergence of Nigel as leader of the AFC is a conspiracy of the so-called black middle class?
oh yes. Oh yes.
Talk to us.
Oh yes, I believe so. I believe that they get beat up at one place. They know that they can't come with that again. But remember, you asked me for my belief, because belief is different from knowledge.
Right.
I'm telling you, given what I know about politics, and how this all comes up. Nigel, first of all, says, I am coming here because I can be the consensus candidate. More or less, as we said. Remember in his introduction. But who wants a consensus candidate? Certainly now, Aubrey. It's the old oligarchies. They want somebody that they think they can throw and get Aubrey out. I mean, oh man, everybody saw that. Now you meet them. You go to the thing where they sit on and drink all of them. Everybody says, this is another confusion they're coming up with.
Aubrey clearly has demonstrated, not just by the voting, but by the body language, the rhetoric from the what you call the followers of the party, in a sense endorsing the oligarchs there. Aubrey clearly came out of this thing with a bump, no? Or more than a bump.
Of course. Of course, you were there, and it's not only being there. It's noting that, remember, they were really saying, really, like, incompetent.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's nobody that's that incompetent can do what he did. They try, the list this, that. When I listen to what they are saying, I can go almost in any organization and say the same thing. This Saturday, what? You are signing checks and this, but you just go away overnight and go and stay a week abroad. You just got to sign some checks and left it if the work will continue. I mean, that's normal. You're not supposed to do it according to the law. But when you go on, if you are the signer of check, what, if both business go far because you got it gallivanting around the world. So it normally happens. So when they start up with this thing, I say, they're not giving me no substance here. Right? What is the substance about this man that they don't particularly like? I mean, if they give me some substance, I'll say it. But I didn't have any. I saw nothing outside. And then they come up with this, well, that better not be said. I mean, it was quite clear. But you gotta ask yourself, maybe you should ask yourself, why is this thing? I mean, and they believe, I think they actually believe they can win the election. And you must ask yourself why that is.
You mean they as in the PNC?
Huh?
They as in who? The PNC?
The PNC. The oligarchs in the PNC.
The oligarchs in the PNC, yes.
They believe they can win the election because they can't be doing all these things and don't feel that they can win. Why they feel that they can win is another story altogether. And if you look back,
I can assure the public in no uncertain terms that I have had nothing to do with the 2016 negotiations at all. And just let me share this for your benefit. Exxon is the cream of the cream of oil operators globally. It is a massive enterprise. Its global numbers are larger than Guyana. Companies like that typically, and I can say this from my experience advising international companies, hire the best experts globally. They have the largest law firms globally, and decisions like negotiations with countries, those decisions are taken at head office. The most they would ever require from local counsel is advice on local law. So I'd be very surprised in any country they operate, not just Guyana, in any country, the heart and soul of their approach would be in that country. But certainly at a personal level, absolutely not. As I've said in my statement, Mr. Andrew Pollard, senior partner in Hughes, Fields and Stobie, has advised Exxon exclusively. The way the firm operates, Mr. Pollard was a member of Hughes, Fields and Stobie before me. The way the firm operates is that we have clients that we advise separately, We have clients that we advise jointly. I have had nothing at any stage to do with advising Exxon at all.
Thank you. I think Mr. Vince Adam would like, excuse me, Vince, you wanted to add something on the meters, please?
Yeah, so let me add here about this meter. I guess it's a general, it's a general question about monitoring. I noticed the Vice President suddenly coming out and start spouting a bunch of stuff about monitoring. And David is absolutely correct. What we've called for, and I know I've called for from day one before production, was for us to have on board, on site monitoring. This satellite stuff that this government is being told is absolute nonsense. Now I'm hearing with this dashboard. Who are the people who are going to be interpreting this dashboard that they're going to be looking at in their office? As a matter of fact, in the past administration, in the coalition government at the EPA, we went out, and I've said this over and over in the public domain, over and over. I've talked about it, written about it, others have written about it. The World Bank, we worked with the World Bank invested $1 million in putting together a document. And they evaluated the necessity for an oil and gas unit within the EPA, a 36-member unit. That it was developed. We were supposed to go and recruit in 2020, except in 2020 there wasn't any budget. To have a 36-member unit, high-powered unit. The minimum qualification was 5 to 10 years experience in oil and gas, etc. We had that plan in place. As soon as we left office, the plan was scrapped. And then the Vice President and Minister BHARRAT came out and said, well, we didn't know anything about the plan, or the plan never existed, and I was dreaming this stuff up until the front cover of the World Bank document appeared on the front page of the newspapers. So it's not a case where we were just talking. We had a plan in place. And then now the government has scrapped it, and then now they're coming up with this thing about, well, we're going to monitor from our offices in Georgetown someplace, and we're going to see it all on the board. The only way of understanding what is going on is you have to have qualified people on board watching the operations. And it's not just about production alone, folks. It's just not a number that is being read out in somebody's office. You have monitoring is to make sure that they comply with everything that is in that permit, for example. All of those requirements to make sure that they're following the procedures. Let me tell you, when I was at EPA, and some of you folks know about this incident, we had a near miss when a non-operator, we almost emptied the well bore of while they were drilling, emptied it of the drilling mud. They were dumping it in the ocean because of a faulty valve. Exxon itself, six times, they had some small spill because they were not following procedures, and they refused to pay the fine. So you have to have people on board to see exactly what is going on and to monitor to make sure that, and when the operator realizes that you have people monitoring them and following them to make sure that they're compliant, they're going to be very, very careful to make sure that we do not have a safety incident. If we have a safety incident, such as a spill, which is our job is to make sure that we prevent a spill or any incident from occurring. So if we do not have the folks on board and we have a spill, everything that we've gained so far would go for naught. So all this stuff about monitoring, the Vice President believes he's some kind of a czar and he speaks about everything on earth that he doesn't know about. But it's about what we had in place that they discarded, that they're now trying to do something to substitute for it.
Thank you, Vince.
We have Adam Harris waiting
I think
for a while.
Mr. Day,
Adam Harris.
Mr. Day was, and I interrupted Mr. Day to let
Okay.
Vince speak, and then
And then
Mr.
Adam.
Harris.
Sure.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Anthony Day from Nigel News. I have a question directed to Mr. Hughes and Mr. Patterson, but I will start with this one. Mr. Hughes, since you have debunked the claims that you have no connection with ExxonMobil specifically in terms of legal advisory, does that mean that once you are elected as president of ExxonMobil, does it mean that would you relinquish your ties with the law firm specifically?
I'm happy you asked that because I addressed it in my statement and I say it again. If and when elected to lead this country or in any official capacity, I will have to relinquish my ties with you, Susan Stovey, and I'm saying it categorically. I will relinquish those ties. Very clearly, absolutely, I cannot and will not be a member of you, Susan Stovey.
Okay, sir. Mr. Patterson, as you're aware that the Vice President will announce that Fulcrum LNG, this is liquefied natural gas, they are supposed to be in talks to forego a second gas project. Based on the fact that we have the current gas assure energy project that's going on, which apparently has been stalled and is supposed to be completed instead of 2025, now has going to next year, 2026, sorry. I wanted to know, do you see the viability of this second gas project that the government wants to embark on?
Jimmy, just let me ask, can I just make one comment on that?
Yes,
Forgive me. In this country, we have to legislate because we don't seem to follow international norms. There is no major project that this country should undertake without a feasibility study. It is absolutely irresponsible and reckless. And therefore, first project, second project, or any project, you cannot come to the people of Guyana, spend their money without a feasibility project. We will not have a repeat of that fiasco that is the Skeldon factory. Sorry, David, please.
Well,
Before David, just to follow up on that, before David jumps in, on the feasibility study, it's not only about legislation, it's in the contract, it's in the PSA that says any utilization of the gas has to have a feasibility study upfront. They violated that, so it's not only about the legislation, it's the same contract that they say they're sanctioned into that contract that they're violating.
Right. I mean, I have nothing more to add other to say that we share the concerns of the general public on the selection of a company that was only formed a year ago, that is headed by somebody who was directly involved. I mean, the Vice President speaks about conflict of interest, yet he overlooks that matter that somebody a year ago was an employer, a year or two ago was an employee of the same company that will be producing the gas and bringing it to shore. He's never addressed that, but he's, let's say, jumping all over the place to make accusations against other persons. So we share the general, the concern to the general public on that entire project, as well as the selection of the consultancy firm.
And I just want to add to that the Alliance for Change will be opposing any attempt to use the proceeds of the Natural Resource Fund to fund the project on which there's been no feasibility. We will oppose that locally, and we will take it internationally because it is a reckless use. As you know, last year, in excess of 90% of the funds were emptied out of that fund for projects of dubious feasibility. Sorry, I think
Adam Harris, you're up.
Thank you very much, brothers. A very good afternoon, brothers and sisters.
Good afternoon.
Congratulations on the new executive. Now, Congress is a time when parties analyze and plan for the future. My first question is, did the AFC analyze its impact or the impact of being in the coalition?
Sorry, sorry.
I think I could.
Kemraj will speak for his term, and I will come out afterwards about my intentions.
It is important to realize, Adam, that we did, in a major document, the path, what was it called?
The way forward.
The Way Forward document. And that was in 2022. And it was a major document in which we then realized certain results and our considerations that also indicated that we are going to separate from the APNU as a result of that at the organizational level, but stay in Parliament at a parliamentary level. There were lots of considerations that went into it. We had disagreements, but we realized a united position, and that was the path forward. So yes, indeed we did. But there is always going to be space for more analysis, and I am certain that this new leadership is also going to do that kind of analysis.
Adam, I know you missed my presentation on Saturday, but one of the key things that I did say is that there must be a re-examination of the time leading up to the coalition, our performance in office at the coalition, our performance at the 2020 elections. Because the only way we can move forward is if we examine what has happened, both good and bad. We must be committed to the truth. We must be committed to those results. And we must be committed to acting on the information. That's the only way we're going to move forward. And I certainly would attempt to persuade the party that we do that as a matter of urgency.
Thank you. Cathy, anybody?
I think Adam said that was his first question. Adam, did you have a second?
Did you have a second question, Adam?
Yes, I did, but I was pausing to allow the other reporters because I saw a large number. But if there's nobody.
No, hold on. Yes, there is. Sorry, sir. You and then you can.
Just taking clarification, you can correct me if I'm wrong. You said that you resigned in 2016 after you attended an NG event in Trinidad.
No, not at all. No, you're conflating two separate issues. I resigned in April 2016. Had nothing to do with my attendance to the energy conference, had nothing to do with Exxon. It had to do with other issues, but not that. So sorry? Which issues, Joe? The ones with Exxon or, sorry?
For your resignation.
It was in a statement.
It was in my statement. I had a very strong difference of opinion on specific issues, and I publicized what that is, and I resigned in principle. I said that before, and I expanded that.
My last question, one of your plans, one of your plans to kind of quash the conflict of interest is stepping away from the oil and gas committee.
I never was in the oil and gas committee.
Can you tell me any others to quash the conflict of interest?
Well, okay. First of all, I think we need to understand conflict. The government right now is in negotiations with Exxon or deals with Exxon. I have no influence over the government, and the government by its actions has indicated the Alliance for Change is dead meat, so it's not going to consult it. So I'm not in a position to influence that. I am in a position to influence the Alliance for Change policy in relation to oil and gas and Exxon. And I've said very specifically, we have a modern approach. We don't believe in this one-man show. So first thing we're going to do, and we have done, is establish a committee, a specific committee, advisory committee, headed by Dr. Vince Adams and Mr. David Patterson, which will deal exclusively with oil and gas. They will invite local and international experts into the field, and they will be responsible exclusively for the formulation of that policy. I have given the party my word, and I have given the public my word. I will have nothing to do with that committee. I will not intervene. I will not recommend. I will not engage. That is my commitment.
Thank you very much. Stabrook News has second time. Stabrook News, right? Yeah.
Yes. Just a follow, since you responded yes to my first question, right? That we negotiated. How are you going to go about negotiating with ExxonMobil and bringing them back to the bargaining table?
When the Petroleum Activities Bill was tabled, I think sometime last year, which was to bring in a new law and a new PSA and those things like that, I tabled 34 amendments. I could share it back with you. 34 amendments on how we expect going forward, what we want to do. You know what I mean? And one of the amendments clearly stated that we recognize that Exxon has done some pioneering work, but we also recognize that there are 34 discoveries, and they've only been given sanctions of I think 6 or 7. And we said in that amendment that what we would like to do is cap it. They have this existing agreement. We cap it to whatever it is, whatever year or cutoff year, and I think the cutoff year was 2025. So whatever they have in production from 2025, remains as the old thing, and whatever, and all the rest continues under the new law. That was one of the amendments. So in other words, we were trying to recognize their pioneering efforts, but understand, get a better deal going forward. Because 34 discoveries of commercial value that they have. They've only started, they've only received production agreements for 7, I think, 6 or 7. So if we do the maths, I mean, there's still a lot of work, and still a lot of fields for them to go to production with, and we don't think that and we do think that having recouped most of their money, we feel that there should be a new arrangement going forward.
We have a question
Let me
from...
quickly add, hold on, let me quickly add. You know, I think we use this renegotiation word as if it's something
That's a bad word.
that is outside of the ordinary or the extraordinary. It is in the contract itself. I think it's clause 42 or whatever. The contract allows for changes, modifications, those are the exact words, so anything within that contract. So it's nothing outside of the contract. So it's a normal process as part of the contract. So whatever the process is, that's what we will proceed with if as it becomes necessary.
Thank you, Dr. Adams. We have a question from Dennis Chabron.
Dennis, can you go ahead?
Thank you. Mr. Hughes, good afternoon, sir. Already we're seeing from the People's National Congress Reform, Mr. Norton, saying that the consensus candidate should come from his party. Where does that leave you and the overall thrust of your party to remove the incumbent PP from office?
Dennis, I think you were the first person that asked me this question before, but I'm happy to take it again. I think I made my position clear insofar as consensus candidates and coalitions are concerned. We are concentrating on building out the Alliance for Change. So not only does it arrive at the strength it had previously, but that it exceeds that so that we become the force and that we can on our own compete if we wanted to. However, our primary focus is Guyana. Guyana, Guyana, Guyana. And whatever is in the best interest of this country, we will do. And I've said before, and I will repeat it, and forgive me for repeating it, we will reach out to the widest and broadest possible coalition of people in this country, civil society, religious groups, trade unions, private sector commission, everybody, first of all, to get their views on what they think is essential for the future of the country, but more importantly, to arrive at a broad, acceptable, consensual framework for the development of this country. And that will always guide the way we proceed.
We have a
I
question.
heard what you said there, sir, but in the world of real politics, should you not become the bigger party, although that appears to be your objective? Would you concede to have the presidential candidate come from the PNC?
This is entirely academic at this stage. Like I said, our efforts are focused on building the Alliance for Change. But to answer that, we will, concede is perhaps the wrong term, we will abide by whatever the broader society says about what they think the consensus candidate or who they think the consensus candidate should be to guide the country. So that would include not just the People's National Congress, it will include civil society, trade unions, if we form that broader group. And so if they identify a candidate or a series of candidates or a group of persons who they think are best equipped to lead the country, who are we to say no? But we're not at that stage. This is highly academic and I dare say, premature at this time.
Thank you. Kathy?
Thank you. We have a question from Chronicle. Please go ahead.
Please go ahead. Can you give your name and...
Hi, yes. Sawar Musa from the Chronicle. I just want to take us back a bit. Now, Mr. Hughes, as you're now leader of the EFC, and you said that Mr. Patterson and Mr. Adams are appointed to the oil and gas in the party. But wouldn't you agree that as a leader of a political party, saying that you cannot or refusing to speak on oil and gas issues is putting you in a compromising position as a leader?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And that is why I went at pains earlier to explain to you how the international business community, particularly the oil and gas community, operates. And if you don't mind, let me give you an example. Any international oil company worth its salt will model out every possible scenario for any transaction it's entering into, whether with a company, whether with a country, whether with a pressure group. It models out, and with artificial intelligence, it models it out. One of the errors that third world countries fall into is that they believe that one person is the repository of all the knowledge. Absolutely impossible. If large international companies find it necessary to hire the best advisors at any area, technical, legal, they hire the best. They go into the universities, they hire the best. They hire the best law firms. They don't even hire one law firm. They hire several law firms. So that any time an international company comes to negotiate with a third world country, what happens is they come with all their experts. They have already worked out the scenario. It is only in countries like ours that we believe that some individual is the repository of knowledge on any particular topic. That traditionally has been called a banana republic approach. The contemporary way to approach these issues is that you gather and you buy the best available international experience and advice that you can have, so that that experience feeds into a national body like a petroleum commission or any other commission dedicated to addressing the oil and gas industry. So I dare say I will never, whether I enjoy the support of the Alliance for Change wholeheartedly or not, believe that any single individual, and certainly not me, would be in a position to determine that policy. That policy has to be driven by data. And that's why we have continuously advocated the data must inform that sort of policy. What I would say is we need to fund in the University of Guyana the departments that deal with oil and gas and the economic planning. It doesn't happen now, so that they can have the research facilities that will be able to best advise all of us as citizens and those commissions that we set up specifically for dealing with oil and gas. So my answer to you is I disagree with you, and I certainly don't think any single person is. As a footnote, this country and economy was based on agriculture and gold prior to 2015. I don't know why you think any citizen, assuming he or she is a genius, would be possessed of the knowledge that would allow them to even remotely think that they're capable of dealing with an international company the size of Exxon or similar companies.
We have a question from Adam Harris online. Adam, please go ahead.
Yes, this is my second question. Now, we know that our country is ethnically divided, and this has impacted our politics. The PPP had claimed that those of its disaffected supporters who had migrated to the AFC went back home. Now, you have been doing some groundwork. Have you been able to recapture this so-called disappearing support that the PPP claims that you had?
Yes, Adam, some of them are in this room as well. So the answer to that is yes, and we will continue reaching out to persons. We continue reaching, as I made my statement, we reconnect. You mean, let's be honest, let's be frank here. You know, I mean, the PPP persons that would have been disaffected and migrated from the AFC never did that because of policy. It's purely, most of them is economic means. That's what the PPP has created an atmosphere where a man or a woman cannot earn a dollar honestly by bid openly. They have done things to ensure that if they identify you were previously with the Alliance for Change in particular, for you to be able to feed your family, you had to pledge loyalty to them. Persons have done that and they still haven't been able to feed their family. So they've decided that they might as well continue the battle that we started, and they're coming aboard. And we welcome them, and we welcome anybody to come on board with us.
Adam, I just want to endorse that statement made by David and to indicate that the confusionist that he is on his bully pulpit every Thursday, he's getting real panicky right now. Nigel Hughes is a huge personality, if I may say. And he's one of the persons who will confront him head on, as Nigel has just done brilliantly. Jagdeo loves to bully people and to drive fear. And when he's unable to do that, as you know, he likes to expel you. But he cannot expel Nigel Hughes. So this confusionist, deceptive thing that he's going to talk about, that our forces left us and all of that, is outrageous nonsense. He got to deal with a different kettle of fish here now. And I think that he is going to be left behind, and that is why he's going to use his bully pulpit to do all manner of things and to talk all kinds of atrocities, especially, as was mentioned by Nigel, politically exposed person. We are all politically exposed persons. Well, what is the big deal? Jagdeo is the most politically exposed person, and that Sue Gate also drew attention to not only what he was exposed to, but actually what Sue and Miss Young found out. That is worse. And here is a man that assented to a constitutional amendment, 2 terms and no more, and he is, by a bypass, serving a 3rd term.
No, it's a 4th.
A 4th term, whatever it is. And there is no conflict of interest there. Look, conflict of interest is a completely different thing as he understands it or misunderstands it. And we feel at this stage that Nigel is going to get the fullest support, 100% and more, from the AFC membership, leadership, rank and file and everything. And that is what is making him very scared. And he wants to now confuse that set of supporters that we have that had come across, stayed, but because of economic necessity, having to be driven back because using state resources to buy them back. But they're going to take the contracts. They're not going to vote for him. Absolutely.
Adam, sorry.
Just before,
I just wanted to add, you know the Jeffersons? You know the theme song for the Jeffersons was Moving On Up? So all the people who you say went back to the PPP, they're moving on up. They're getting that second home and they're coming home to the Alliance for Change. So no longer, you see in the old days, people thought that they had a transport over people. You know, one party thought they had a transport over the Indians, another party thought they had a transport over the Africans. Well, I think the voters and the electorate in Guyana is going to demonstrate that, you know, nobody owns them. And they're moving on up. So they got their new homes, and the good thing about it is that they can move to any home that they want at any time.
Adam, I just wanted to also, on that matter, I saw a release, I think it's from iNews, that Vice President Jagdeo said that he left a lucrative career to return to politics. And I was about to ask him if anybody asked him what lucrative career did BHARRAT Jagdeo ever have. Yeah, you mean, no, I mean, I was surprised when he asked me. He was at state planning, and the reports are that he spent all his time at Forest Green and whatever the place, the old Demico house, drinking coffee and undermining the activity to state planning. Then he went into to government. There was a brilliant article, I think, done by Peeping Tom, which did a full analysis of his economic stewardship of this country, which exposed that we were actually worse off under his stewardship. And then he left government in 2011, just 6 days before or a week before he signed the airport deal. Maybe that was the lucrative career he was discussing on the. Nobody in Guyana ever knew about that, the deal, $150 million. Maybe himself and whoever it is were busy career-wise looking into how that airport deal should be managed. But to hear him say that he left a lucrative career to come back and serve, as I said, in his fourth term as president, is laughable. And I do think that you in the media, and if anybody can actually tell me what actual career or what actual work that BHARRAT Jagdeo left behind to return as vice president.
We have a final question from Dennis Chabral.
Mr. Hughes, you've been talking so much about getting data to support decision making. In terms of matters such as the presidential candidacy, social and physical infrastructural development and other needs and wants of the society, will your party be making these results of these surveys and other data gathering processes public?
No. What I was saying, Dennis, sorry you misinterpreted me, is that the government needs to make decisions based on data, especially disaggregated data. So even if we gather data as a political party, the government, as part of its decision-making process, needs to be driven by data. So for example, and I'm happy that Jurita mentioned it, that only one indigenous student made it to QC. We know that in 2022, not a single indigenous student got an A, while on the coast, people got 24 and 23 A's and topped the Caribbean. That is educational apartheid. That's the sort of data that would, I believe, lead to a policy which, one, would say that we have an emergency and crisis in the indigenous educational community, and therefore we need to pour emergency funds not into building schools, which gives contracts to people, but into making sure that the quality of tuition given to indigenous people is elevated rapidly. If that means improving the terms and conditions for teachers who are going to live in indigenous communities so that they get a special, for want of a better term, top up on their salary, so that we have better quality education being imparted to them, that is what I mean by data. Because that data from 2022, to me, if I were the president or in government, that would have necessitated immediately an emergency insertion of funds directed to improving the quality of education received in the riverine and hinterland areas, the indigenous communities. Nothing has happened. All we've said is we put another $1 billion into a school. A school does not educate students. If you go to India, one of the most successful technological countries in the world, it didn't get there overnight. They used to teach on the trees. And Mr. Modi has followed policies that has allowed India to get where it's gotten. And it has got there based on data and identifying objectives. And so it's not a question of whether when the AFC collects this data, it's what the data says. And I'm happy that Jurita has raised that, and that is what I would say. Immediately in education, we can't have one indigenous student qualifying for QC. Come on, anyway, that's my response to you, sir.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for attending this press conference. I think everyone had an opportunity to ask their questions. Thank you for coming, and we'll let you know that we, as usual, return to our weekly press conferences Fridays at 1:30. Thank you very much.
Thank you.